very delighted to join you for this final roundtable of 2021. And I would like to thank the GFE team for this kind invitation. With a lot of humility, I will tell you what I think about what we achieved and what still we have to do for next years. I think that you are right, that after COP26, we need to mark a stop and to ask ourselves, what did we achieve and what is next? Let's first recall what's COP26. COP26 was the first important rendezvous after the Paris Agreement. In 2015, we decided that in 2020, we will meet again and deliver and see all of us what we have achieved, and we will come back with more ambitions. A rendezvous that has been difficult to secure because of a year-long delay due to COVID-19 pandemic. COP26 is the first COP where parties could concretely appreciate the seriousness, the credibility of all regarding the implementation of the Paris Agreement. So a very expected COP with a lot of expectations. First, COP26 was supposed to confirm firmly the objective of 1.5 degrees C in line with the 2018 IPCC report and the UNEP-CAP report. And remember that we parties have asked the IPCC to release this report in 2018 and to tell us if we need 1.5 or 2 degrees C to fix as objective for tackling climate change. And fixing the compass, which is 1.5 degrees C or 2 degrees C, is extremely important because it will impact the effort needed to reach this objective, and will need more or less ambitious indices. So it was very important, and COP26 was supposed to fix it definitely. Second, this rendezvous was to show more progress, a decrease of CO2 emissions since Paris, since 2015, and more ambitions for the next 5 years through the updated indices. COP26 had also to deliver on carbon market and transparency mechanism. Both tools are very important to track carbon emissions and to accelerate the transition. And finally, and I think that is the most important, because COP26 was the rendezvous of trust, where the developed world was supposed and was expected to fulfill its promises toward the developing world on matters such as adaptation, finance, and loss and damage. I really don't want to be negative because I know how hard our UK friends have worked to make this COP a successful COP and a historical COP. And I still remember the closing with the president of COP, and I was very sensitive to all the effort the UK and my friends in UK did. But once again, we missed an opportunity to be on the correct side of history. COP26 failed in delivering. Richer nations had failed to raise the 100 billion annual climate funding they has promised to the vulnerable countries, and they failed to deliver on loss and damage mechanism. Most importantly, and I think that this is the point, we missed the reduction of the gap to stay in below 1.5 degrees C and even below 2 degrees C of the CO2 emissions. The CO2 emissions are, since the Paris Agreement, in a constant increase instead of decrease. The UNFCCC latest update shows for all available indices of all the 193 parties taken together, that there will be an increase of about 14% in CO2 emissions in 2030 compared to 2010. So, and many NDCs from the developing countries contain more ambitious conditional commitment to reduce emissions, which can only be implemented with access to enhanced financial resources and other support. So through the NDCs, which is right now the only, I will say, tool to implement the Paris Agreement, we unfortunately felt that combating climate change was not yet the priority for many nations around the world. Now, COP26 didn't bring only bad news, but they brought also some good news. The most important, in my opinion, is the fact that we introduced the discussion concerning coal and fossil fuel subsidies within the arena of negotiation. And believe me, this is historical and put COP26 beyond the most cohesive COP in history. That was something we couldn't discuss under negotiation before. And UK presidency succeeded in bringing this discussion within the arena of negotiation. This is the first ever COP decision to explicitly target action against fossil fuel, calling at the first, in the first text for phasing out of coal and inefficient fossil fuel subsidies while safeguarding a fair transition. And that was unfortunately changed in the final text to phase down instead of phase out by India, but it's still a very good step in the correct direction. I think that COP26, we detach to the heart of the problems of climate change, because we cannot pretend anymore in working toward building a low carbon society while still investing heavily in coal and subsidizing fossil fuel. And we know all that more than 600 billion is spent annually to support fossil fuel consumers. If part of this money is saved, it will not only fill the gap of the 100 billion promised to the most vulnerable, but also accelerate the transition away from fossil fuels. The second good achievement of COP26 was indeed the Glasgow Pact, which sets a clear expectation that all countries will raise their game next year, with intense diplomatic pressure likely to fall on those that refuse to play the game. Again, this goes beyond what was agreed in the Paris Agreement, where countries were only expected to update their pledges every 5 years, with an option to do so at any time. Although the pact didn't deliver on loss and damage, and much of the language in the pact remains not binding, it does contain a number of decisions and requests in addition to the wording of cutting emissions. The deal also includes, and we all know that, commitments from some countries on ending deforestation, reducing methane emissions, and pledge from the financial sector to move trillions of dollars of investment into companies that are committed to net zero emissions. However, modeling suggests that the promises will still not be enough to limit global warming to 2 degrees C above pre-industrial levels. Now, did we succeed in erasing the disconnection between the urgency and the negotiation process? Maybe not. My feeling is that climate change is not yet considered as a global threat until it unfortunately hits us all, which by then will be too late. The urgency is still linked to the South and is not yet felt as a reality in the North. We are still negotiating, and that was the process for the Glasgow Pact. We are still negotiating and postponing commitment instead of advancing on implementation. And we need, I think, more than a COP to erase the disconnection between this impenetrable process of negotiations and the urgency of action, which is demanded by the protesters all over the world and called for by the IPCC through its report and by the youth protesters. Today, we are in the era of dual COPs. And Paris was, I will say, a turning point in the way we are holding COP. So those to implement the global transformation called for by the Paris Agreement, all of us are concerned, non-state actors, civil society, business, territories, in short, citizens all over the world are ready now to make negotiations a reality. But what we need strong international and national political signals from the states. And I think that it's began with the Glasgow Pact. We need coherent policies and regulations which will effectively lead us on the right path, give more visibility to the private sector, and restore the trust among investors to foster the change toward a low carbon future. Already in Lima, in Peru, we understood that implementing the Paris Agreement was our shared responsibility. And in Paris, we launched the agenda of action. In Morocco, we launched the Marrakesh Partnership, where we gather all the non-state actors and the state actors to enhance the implementation of the right policies and the implementation of projects. And I think that this positive pressure, which is independent from the negotiations, is very important to advance the climate agenda and to advance the implementation of the Paris Agreement. The UNFCCC in general and negotiators in particular will not escape to this positive pressure. And today we need, I think, to turn the COVID-19 pandemic to an opportunity to recover healthier and to give hope to the most vulnerable who are paying on a daily basis from their life the impact of climate change. We know all the impact of climate change. We know that now it's heating intensively the south, but nobody will escape from the impact of climate change in the very close future. So today we need to turn this health crisis to recover healthier. We clearly have to change if we want to change climate change. And I am very, I will end by a very positive note, saying that maybe in Sharm El-Shaikh in Egypt next year, we will restore the trust and we will effectively begin to implement the Paris Agreement. And this is what we need. Thank you.